All right, you're welcome. This is Onside with me, Joshua Holotu of Inshira FM and Love FM here in Kumasi. And we're going to talk about the World Cup pretty shortly. But before we do that, please subscribe. Subscribe to this channel, turn on post notifications so that anytime I drop a video, you're going to be the first person to receive it. Now, let's go into the World Cup because yesterday was a day of draws. So many drawn games in the FIFA World Cup. We'll start off from Spain and Cape Verde, a historic feat for Cape Verde, who are debutants at this year's tournament. They came up against one-time World Cup champions Spain. They won it in 2010. But I mean, you and I would agree that coming into that game, Cape Verde were serious underdogs because Spain have been declared by so many statistical organizations that they are the favorites to win the FIFA World Cup this year. And I can also understand when people say that in that game between Spain and Cape Verde, Spain needed to put up a kind of performance that would validate those statistical analysis that have been done before the tournament even began. But yesterday, what did we see? We saw Spain literally held on their necks by a very spirited Cape Verdean side who were really inspired by their goalkeeper Vuzinha. And I have a very interesting story about Vuzinha that I'm going to tell you very, very shortly. But let's look at what transpired in the game between Spain and Cape Verde. The ball possession that Spain got was 74 to a 26 by Cape Verde. And if you watch the game carefully, typically Spain really put the pressure on Cape Verde right from the get-go. But Cape Verde and the way they defended were so organized. And I said it yesterday when I was in commentary position that if for nothing at all, by the time the game was over, one thing that analysts would have learned from this Cape Verdean side is that any team that really wants to sit in a low to mid block and play against a very tough opponent like Spain needs to be very calculated and well organized. The way they press, the way they defend, and the way they prevent vertical passes from going through their defense. And I think that is what Cape Verde did and did it so well to perfection. Spain was forced to pass the ball sideways around the Cape Verde defense, and it didn't look like it was working for them. At some point in the first half, Riaza Rodri wanted to pick Cucurella in the left half spaces, and then Cucurella trying to bring the ball into the middle to either find Mikel Oyarzabal or Ferran Torres, and both of them were very toothless in the attack. At some point, I thought Ferran Torres spent so much time on the pitch. He should have been substituted a long time ago. But also Luis de la Fuente, he was forced to bring on Lamine Yamal, who has been, said to be half fit. And yesterday we saw it. When he came onto the pitch, he struggled to really find his feet. The flair was there. He took on his markers. But again, Cape Verde, so defensively solid. They dedicated two people, to Lamine Yamal. And that was the point that I thought I was going to see a goal. They were very, very compact in the way they played. They didn't allow so many spaces, even when Lamine Yamal was brought on. And I think that they did so well. But with an XG of 2.10 for Spain and 0.20 for Cape Verde, at the time the game had ended, I thought that Spain would be very disappointed with the kind of display that they put up. It was goalless by full time, but Cape Verde would have seen that as a win for them because in your first appearance at the FIFA World Cup and managing to play a goalless draw with Spain, that is more or less a victory. It will rather sound like a defeat or feel like a defeat for Spain because they couldn't marshal their arsenal and all the big games that they had to beat Minos in Cape Verde. Cape Verde were really solid in defense, and I think they really did so well. Look at the other statistics, right? Spain got 51 touches in the opposition box. And guess how many Cape Verde had? Only six. Only six. And so these are stories that we always want to see in football. This is why we love football. If anybody asks you why we love football, tell them about these stories. And let me tell you about Vuzinha, the goalkeeper for the Cape Verde team. Now, he is 40 years old. Vuzinha is 40 years old. All his years of preparation and all the things that he has committed to his career for the Cape Verde national team came down to yesterday's effort. I'm going to give you his personal statistics and the saves that he made in yesterday's game. But you know the interesting thing about what happened yesterday? At the time when the game was about to be played, Vozinha had only 20,000 followers on Instagram. And as we speak currently, Vozinha is averaging close to 2 to 3 million followers on Instagram. That was after the performance that he put up in the game against Spain. Let's look at the statistics. He played 90 minutes in that game, right? He made 7 saves, conceded 0 goals, and in terms of goals prevented with the XG calculation, he prevented 1.45 goals. And I thought that was brilliant. You know, I thought that Vozinha had a day that would forever be etched in history as the day where he saw the glory brought down right in front of him. So that was the game between Spain and Cabo Verde. Spain have quite a very tricky campaign now because their other group opponents are Uruguay and Saudi Arabia. And I'm going to go into that Uruguay-Saudi Arabia game very shortly. But if Spain really want to save themselves at this point, they would have to get 2 wins out of 2 in the remaining games that they have available. But what can be the strategy that they can deploy to try and win the games that they need to win? First of all, Spain were toothless in attack because they didn't have their regular man available right from the start. So Lamine Yamal, when he plays in the wide areas, you can trust him to drift more men towards him and free some space in the box for more advantage in terms of numbers for the Spain national team. But yesterday, from the beginning of the game, we didn't see that. So what we saw rather was that the midfield struggled to feed the ball into attack, right? So Mikel Oyarzabal, Ferran Torres, they needed to find an outlet where the ball can be received either from the wide areas or through the channel. Through the channel, we had Fabian Ruiz, we also had Rodri. Both of them struggled really hard in the game to pass the ball vertically. So they had to find ways of going around and passing it sideways, which it didn't really end up the way they would have expected. Cucurella had quite a good game, but I think he could have done better in terms of some of his deliveries. In games of this nature, you really need to be very decisive. You need to be on point, you need to be sharp. And I thought that in the first half, they had a couple of opportunities that they could have found the back of the net, but they didn't find it. So at some point, even when the second half began, they started going long, they started shooting the ball. Fabian Ruiz did that twice. It didn't end up well. I think Mikel Oyarzabal also got 1 shot. He skied it. Ferran Torres also got 1 shot and he skied it. And you can also tell for a fact that most of the game was played in the half of the Cape Verdeans, right? They even got chances on the counter-attack. And if they were clinical enough, I thought they could have even got a goal from there. But it was clear inexperience written all over their faces. And that is why they couldn't make anything out of the recoveries and also the recycles in possession that they, were able to get. But you can't fault them too much. I think they still put up a very good fight and they managed to get the draw. Spain need to be very careful because going into the next game, they need to find a fully fit Lamine Yamal on the pitch for them on that day. And Spain's next game is against Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, after what they did against Uruguay yesterday, convinced me that they are a very difficult side. In the 2022 World Cup, they were coached by Hervé Renard, who seems to be on the verge of joining Tunisia as their head coach at the tournament after Tunisia's head coach was sacked after his first defeat in the FIFA World Cup when they lost to Sweden by 5-1. So let's keep our eyes on that. I'll give you more updates as and when I receive them. But Spain, going into that game against Saudi Arabia, have a really heavy task of winning the game and winning it convincingly. Because with the favorite tag still attached to them, they don't want to go into that game with fear of not getting the result or not being able to meet the expectation again. But they would have to do that with Lamine Yamal on the pitch because he has a lot of the creativity that they need. And if they are not able to do that, I think that it spells a doom for them. But Cape Verde have been able to give a very good template of what to do and how to play against Spain, which a lot of teams are going to look at and try and copy or emulate. That is where it also becomes quite problematic for Spain because they don't want to find themselves in this current situation. It's very difficult to be able to, get past it with world football and where it's at right now. You always need to win your first games and make sure that you have everything that it takes to get you into the next stage. So Saudi Arabia, in that game against Uruguay, they played a 1-1 draw at the Miami Stadium. But you look at the statistics from that game, I think it was a very good game in terms of how pulsating it was. Yes, Uruguay dominated 67% possession to 33. Look at the expected goals, 1.72 for Uruguay, 0.66 for Saudi Arabia. It was quite a one-sided affair. But I don't think Saudi Arabia disgraced themselves. They went into the lead in the 41st minute through Al Amri before a late goal from Ronald Araujo got them the equalizer. But it was a very good game for the Uruguayans. And when you look at the players that started for Uruguay, they are very familiar names. You have Fernando Muslera. For those who don't remember, Fernando Muslera was the man in post for Uruguay when they played against Ghana at the 2010 FIFA World Cup. So he's a veteran, so to speak. He's 40 years of age, Fernando Muslera. So he's a very experienced hand that Uruguay have in post. But of course, Ronald Araujo was in there. He got the equalizer. Then we have Darwin Nunez of Al Hilal. He was also in the game. We have Rodrigo Bentancur, who plays for Tottenham Hotspur. He was also in the game. Then we also have Federico Valverde and Manuel Ugarte. So these were very familiar names that played in the game against Saudi Arabia for Uruguay. They have a very good team, and I think that they are in pole position to finish second place in this group. But I must quickly add that this particular group is very wide open. Really, really wide open, because now Saudi Arabia and Uruguay played a draw. Then we also had Spain and Cape Verde playing a draw. So everybody has a chance of moving to the next stage, because now everybody has 1 point. But the second round, which is the next round of matches in this group, will really determine what's going to happen next. Saudi Arabia is going to come up against Spain, and we're going to have Uruguay play Cape Verde. And we see what Cape Verde can put up a spirited fight again in that game against Uruguay. Let's also talk about Group G, because Group G also had very interesting results on the day. Belgium, one of the teams that have not won the World Cup yet after having a couple of golden generations in the last 1 or 2 decades. They came up against African giants Egypt. And Egypt, I must say this about them, Egypt are African giants when it comes to the AFCON. But on the global stage, they've always struggled. They haven't really had a very good performance at the FIFA World Cup. They played a 1-1 draw with Belgium. But look at what happened in the game, right? Egypt took the lead through a goal from Iman Ashur. Very good shot that he struck from, I think, about 25 yards out. Courtois was all day not going to stop that ball from entering the back of the net. So he tried to save it, but it was way past him before he could realize. 1-0 for Egypt. Only for Egypt to concede just when Romelu Lukaku comes on from the bench around the 65th minute. So our African colleagues, Egypt, they managed a 1-1 draw with Belgium. And the other game from that group was played very, very late, around 3 a.m. in the morning. That was between Iran and New Zealand. Now, Iran, we already know the controversies that surround them. Yes, the game was played in Los Angeles. And one thing about the Los Angeles Stadium is that in and around that area, we have so many Iranians living there. So the atmosphere in the stadium was very intimidating for the New Zealanders, because there were so many Iranians on the pitch, in the stands, supporting the Iranian team. And because of the controversy that surround the Iranian team, they really needed that support to push them and urge them to do so well in this particular first game that they were playing at the FIFA World Cup. Now, we have in Group G, we have New Zealand, Iran, Belgium, and Egypt all on 1 point. And the dynamics for Group G and Group H is really interesting, because all the teams that have played so far have played draws over there, and they all have 1 point. So those groups are wide open. And it's going to be very interesting to see how game week 2 in those groups unfold. But now let's talk quickly about the games that are going to be played today. Now, there's going to be a blockbuster at 7 p.m. GMT. That game is between France and Senegal. So for the uninitiated, France and Senegal is a game that is a must watch. And for those who remember, in 2002, in that FIFA World Cup in Korea and Japan, France and Senegal played in that Group A fixture. And guess what? France lost that game by 1-0. It was a Papa Bouba Diop goal that got Senegal that victory in that game. And it was a talk of town. It was a real shock. And the worst part is that in that particular tournament, France finished last in that Group A because it was Denmark, Senegal, Uruguay, and France. Denmark finished first in that group with 7 points. Senegal finished second with 5 points because they won one game and played 2 draws. Then Uruguay was third with 2 points, and France finished last with just 1 point. And they had won the 1998 FIFA World Cup. So it was quite disastrous for them coming into the 2002 FIFA World Cup and exiting that particular tournament without winning a single game. Now, the other dynamic in this game is that Senegal will be playing against their colonial masters, and anytime we see this game, we always need to pay key attention to it. But let's look at the possible lineups for the two teams going into this game. I have France, and they may put up a 4-2-3-1 formation with Mike Maignan in post, then Dayoto Pamecano and William Saliba holding the central defense. Then we have Tio Hernandez on the left with Joe Koundé playing in the right back. Then we may have a double pivot of Adrien Rabiot and Aurelien Tchouameni sitting in the heart of the midfield. Desiré Doué, Ousmane Dembélé, and Michael Olise. Desiré Doué, Ousmane Dembélé, and Michael Olise will be playing in the attack right behind Kylian Mbappe, who may lead the line. And this is a really possible lineup that could happen for France. So Senegal, they may have Mori Diaw in post. He plays for Le Havre in France. Then Crepin Diatta as right back. We may see Malik Diouf at left back. Then it's possible we are going to see Mamadou Sarr, who plays for Chelsea. And also, we're going to see Moussa Niakate, who plays for Olympique Lyon in the center of defense. Very likely, we're going to see Pape Sarr in the midfield. He hasn't really started a lot of games for Senegal, but it's likely he may start in this game. We're also going to see Lamine Camara of Monaco also partner him in double pivot in the midfield. Then, very likely, we're going to see Ismail Assar of Crystal Palace. Ismail Assar, we're going to also see Habib Diarra of Sunderland, and we're also going to see Sadio Mane of Al Nassr. And we're going to have Nicholas Jackson lead the line. He is on loan to Bayern Munich, returning to Chelsea this summer. So this could be the potential lineup for Senegal. What is your prediction? Didier Deschamps coming against Pape Thiaw. Of course, Senegal have lodged an official lawsuit contending with that decision by CAF to award Morocco with the AFCON, and we still yet to get the outcome of that. But coming into this tournament, Senegal are one of the favorites that may end up being the best performing team from Africa. In fact, when I made my predictions a couple of days ago before the tournament began, I said that my best performing team from Africa would be Senegal. And I really want to see them go really far. But after Morocco's performance, right, I can also say that Morocco is one team that is really going to go far in this tournament because of how they play. We are yet to see performances from DR Congo, from Ghana as well. But I think that between Morocco and Senegal, we're going to see one of them go as far as the semi-final. And I think that would be a very good thing for Africa. I really want to see two African teams really go that far. But if I see one team get to the semi-final this time around, I'm going to be a very happy man. So this is the possible lineup for Senegal and France in that game that they're going to play at 7 p.m. tonight. Of course, there's Iraq and Norway that we played at 10 p.m. later today. We also have Argentina and Algeria. That game is going to be played tomorrow at 1 a.m. Then we also have Austria and Jordan. That game will be played at 4 a.m. The game between Ghana and Panama is getting closer. And as it stands right now, Thomas Partey's issue is still in court. There was an update from Sports Minister Kofi Adams saying that the case is currently being heard. And we are going to receive some response very soon as to what the judgment is, whether Thomas Partey would be allowed to fly and meet the team in Toronto early enough to train briefly with the team before they play against Panama 11 p.m. GMT tomorrow, Wednesday, June the 17th. And so there are still some updates coming in thick and fast. As and when I receive them, I'm going to give you the updates on Facebook and all the other platforms. But again, before I finish this video, subscribe to the channel, drop your comments, turn on post notifications. Anytime I drop a video, you're going to be the first to receive it. This is Onside with me, Joshua Holo 2, until I come your way again with more updates from the Black Stars and also all the other interesting games that are going to be played in this tournament. Peace out. See you in the next one.